Newcastle is known by those in the know as the next boom city. Just to quote the Lord Mayor, it is transitioning from a great regional city to an emerging global one. Now, at half the price of Sydney, it represents fantastic value. But on top of this, the government is making strategic moves to reinvest into the CBD and revitalise the city. So I've come up here today to inspect for myself and find out if in fact it is a good investment opportunity. So let's go take a look. You need to know about Newcastle's history. Dating back to 1801, Newcastle was known as a productive coal mining town. Now, moving on to the 1900s, BHP employed well over 50,000 people. This is until the late 90s when it left a literal haze over the city. Unemployment skyrocketed by 12%. After a generation of gloom, Newcastle decided it was going to pick itself back up, dust the soot off its shoulders, and reinvent itself. Herein lies the opportunity. For me, when picking any good market, it's about having a robust local economy. What really surprised me about Newcastle was far from being its old resource-based economy, it's now moved to a more progressive one. The top 4 industries now are healthcare, education, hospitality, and then construction. In addition, Newcastle is fast becoming a hot tourist destination. They're making 2 key investments that's going to change the area and boost the local economy. The first one being the $13.5 million investment into the shipping terminal. This is going to bring more people into the CBD every single year. The second one being the injection of the V8 supercars. This 5-year contract is expected to bring $57 million into the Hunter region. Just last year, they had 190,000 people come into the city. This more than doubled expectations for crowd attendance. So does it sound like Newcastle has a robust and flourishing economy? I'm going to say yes. When picking your market, you want to pay keen attention to the key investments in infrastructure. Now, I'm particularly interested in Newcastle because they've got a tremendous pipeline of projects that are coming through the area. You've got investments in transport, tourism, education, and innovation, all changing the way that people integrate and use the CBD. Starting with transport, there are 3 main projects that Newcastle are investing in: the interchange, light rail, and the airport. This $200 million piece of infrastructure behind me has completely changed the way people are engaging with the CBD. You've got the heavy rail, light rail, buses, taxis, and these little terminals here where people can engage and get easy access into the CBD. Vitally important for a city's growth. The light rail, as I like to call it, train to the beach, is a $260 million investment connecting the eastern and the western sides of the city. Starting in the west, it's predominantly older factories and only now starting to evolve into modern apartment buildings. Just 2.7 kilometers down the track and you're in the east side of the city. Heritage buildings everywhere. It reminds me of the rocks in Sydney. Needless to say, we're also right on the beach. Imagine waking up one morning and suddenly you're minutes away from all of this. Starting with the airport, the $14.5 million investment is going to facilitate international flights, bringing in more tourism, people from outside into the CBD city and the local community. Now, moving on from the airport, we've got the new $17.5 million innovations hub. As part of the hub, they're also trying to invigorate the city by creating free Wi-Fi, smart lighting, and also smart parking technology. Now, they're doing all of this to try and incentivize entrepreneurs, students, and artistic heads that come into the CBD, enliven, invigorate, and bring in new energy and vibrance. Education has been at the backbone of Newcastle's innovation, the driving force. This $95 million campus has injected an additional 3,500 students and staff. There's a second campus, the Honeysuckle, which will more than double these numbers. Think about that, all these people coming into the CBD, injecting this life, energy, and influence. Now, what's particularly interesting now is we're going to ask the question, does Newcastle have all the key infrastructure needed to drive growth in the years to come? I think that that's a resounding yes. A central point when pre-qualifying any given market is knowing who lives there and what they demand. If you understand what the people want, then you simply fill the order. That underwrites your investment and protects it. Now, Newcastle has always had beautiful beaches, but what's a more recent development is this surge in lifestyle, culture, and fine dining. Places like this have been coming out of the woodwork where you can get a great beer and something delicious to eat. This has brought about a new demographic into the city. You've got all these young professionals and pre-retirees moving into the market, both of which have fantastic incomes and no children. They either haven't had them yet or they've booted them out of the house. This high disposable income means they've got more money to spend on the fine dining and also on their housing. So the big question here is, do we know about our demographic? Yes. And is it a big, large and growing group? Yes and yes. See, both of these age groups are both growing and the largest in the city. What a great day of exploration. I really enjoyed it. Aside from being a place that I'd love to live in, it now really feels like a story of a city coming of age. It's maturing into itself and it's poised for long-term growth. It's got all the fundamentals. It's investing in key pieces of infrastructure, rejuvenating the CBD and the foreshore. This is attracting a great demographic of people. They're all flocking in. You've got pre-retirees, young urban professionals and students flocking into the city and attracted to that lifestyle. There's also a strong economic workforce. Education, hospitality, healthcare, construction, tourism, all bolstering the economy. So when I think about this city and the long-term growth that it has, it ticks all the boxes and it's something that I definitely recommend to all of you. So now before you go off and start buying all these properties in the Newcastle market, I think it's vitally important we slow down and you know some of the risks. Not all property and developments are made equal. People have really made some terrible mistakes by just jumping into any given deal because it has some beautiful pictures in this really nice brochure. You know, they've put a deposit into a development, it hasn't got its DA yet, and they're just waiting for this apartment to complete, and years later, nothing's happened or it falls over. Or they bought an apartment expecting it to be this beautiful 3-bedroom, they walk in and they're missing a bedroom, or they're missing a car spot, or they're missing a bathroom. And you haven't quite got what you expect. Or maybe everything's there and it's just terribly built. It's just shoddy, crappy construction because the builder isn't very good. Or maybe you walk into the apartment, everything is beautiful, you walk out into the balcony, big breath of air, and suddenly your beautiful beach view is no longer there because you have this huge building in front of you, or that park view is gone, and all that growth that you thought you're going to get, it's just evaporated. This is where that second stage of research is vitally important. That's where you need to slow down and really pay attention. Ask those questions. Where in the city are we going? What particular area do we want to invest in? Who's the developer? What's their track record? Who's the builder and what's their track record? Is the development DA approved? Has it got its finance? Is it moving ahead? These are all the careful questions that you need to ask yourself before you go and spend thousands of dollars in this investment. Now, before you despair, know that my team and I at Galahad have been doing this a long time. We've done the hundreds of hours of research. We know all the teams that are out there. We've spoken to the developers, we've done the due diligence, and now it's just up to you to come into the office, have a chat to us, and come along for the ride. Let Galahad guide you.